selective filtering of information. And there are several types of energy shown here in the first slide. There is, of course, mechanical energy, for example, touch or pressure. There is thermal energy, which contains information on temperature, heat, or the absence of heat. There's chemical energy, for example, the chemicals in foods. And there's electromagnetic energy. And the fundamental functions of this sensory transduction process is to enable the brain to produce the appropriate signals to control movement, to control levels of conscious arousal, and of course to process multiple types of sensory signals in order to produce the latter two outputs, motor and arousal signals. Now, the brain is capable of figuring out four fundamental types of information about a stimulus. The first is, of course, what type of stimulus. The original modality shown here: touch, vision, hearing, taste, and smell. The five senses, basically. The second piece of information is the intensity of the stimulus, whether it's a weak or a strong stimulus. The third and fourth are the duration of the stimulus, whether it's a long-lasting stimulus or a very brief stimulus. And in many cases, the specific location of the stimulus. For example, whether it's a point of light in the upper left-hand corner of your visual field or in the lower right-hand corner of your visual field. Spatial location. And the same goes for touch as well. You can easily discriminate where a pinprick occurs on your fingertip, but less so in your lower back, because the number of receptors is much higher in the fingertip than in your lower back. So each sensory receptor has a receptive field. And in the case of the somatosensory system, the receptors that supply the surface of your skin, each individual receptor has a small restricted area of space or area of skin in which it is capable of receiving stimuli. So in this cartoon, you have multiple receptors and their axons shooting towards the spinal cord. These multiple receptors have partially overlapping receptor fields in a tiny patch of skin on the surface of your hand. So if you use the pencil point to touch any one of these receptor fields, that will excite one, maybe even two axons. If you use a much larger object, you will, of course, excite many more of these sensory receptors because you will have touched multiple receptor fields, more than one. Now, because these sensory receptors can converge onto individual neurons in the spinal cord and further up towards the brain, these CNS neurons at higher levels of the central nervous system will themselves have receptive fields, but their receptive fields will be much more complex because they consist of the convergence of receptive fields from the peripheral receptors. Okay? So as you descend the hierarchy in the central nervous system, the neurons at each higher level of this hierarchy will have receptive fields that are more and more complex, which means that it takes more complex stimuli to excite neurons higher up in the CNS than it would out here in the So receptive field properties become more and more complex as you enter the CNS and approach the cortex. For example, in your visual system, primary visual cortex, there are cortical neurons that will respond to a single narrow strip of light moving in one direction across its receptive field in the visual field, but not in another direction. And there are other neurons that will respond to more complex patterns of light in your visual field. And these neurons can be found elsewhere within your visual system at the level of your cerebral cortex. I won't talk about these neurons until next week's lecture on work programming and visual memory. So they're exquisitely interesting, and they can account for the ability of the human visual system to make out complex configurations of visual shapes, objects in motion, objects that are stationary, colorful objects that are in black and white, infinite variation. Now, when you touch a receptor, such as a touch receptor, mechanoreceptor on the surface of your skin, that actual receptor that is just underneath your skin will produce a local potential known as a receptor potential. And these receptor potentials really are nothing more than ESP. Okay, so we've talked about ESPs already. You know that when an ESP is large enough to reach threshold, you get an all or none action potential. The same is true with receptor potentials. In many cases, a receptor potential will reach a threshold to elicit an action potential. And that's how you get signal transduction towards your spinal cord and upwards through your medulla all the way to the primary spinal cord. So in order to sense an actual stimulus out here in the periphery, you need to have action potentials reach your cerebral cortex, because your cortex is really the ultimate organ for enabling you to say that was a pinprick or that was a hammer blow. Okay? Without that signal reaching the cortex, there can be no sensing. Now, the brain uses what's known as a brain code or neural code, which consists of patterns of action potentials. You know that action potentials are fixed in amplitude, so the brain cannot use amplitude as a way of distinguishing the characteristics of a sensory stimulus. What it can use instead is a frequency code or a population code. And a frequency code simply means that the stronger a sensory stimulus is, the higher the frequency of firing of action potential. So here you have a receptor innervating a muscle fiber. When the muscle is stretched, it will produce a receptor potential. If it's stretched even more, it will produce a larger receptor potential, which elicits further downstream here more action potential. So the action potential frequency is proportional to the strength of the original stimulus, reflected by the amplitude of the receptor potential. That's a frequency code. There's also a population code whereby a very strong stimulus will activate more receptors with higher intensity. Okay? A weak stimulus will activate fewer receptors. That's called a population code. And the brain uses both in combination in order to distinguish between different types of stimuli and their relative amplitudes. So let's talk about the various types of mechanoreceptor axons. axons that come from the skin, and they are noted as A alpha, A delta, A beta, sorry, A delta, A beta, and C beta. Those are coming from the skin, and their equivalent axons that come from muscle are termed 1, 2, 3, and 4, global numerals. Okay. The alphas are the largest, the C fibers are the smallest. And of these 4 classes of axons, the C fibers are the only ones that are not myelinated. Therefore, because they don't have that insulating sheath of myelin, and because of their tiny diameters, which increases the longitudinal resistance, they are the most slowly conducting fibers. They will conduct active potential at the slowest speed, shown here, about 0.2 to 1.5 meters per second. Slightly slower than Usain Bolt, the world record holder. I think his record speed in the 100-meter dash, assuming he doesn't pull up and cowboy it for the camera, which is known for his maximum speed, I think, because of the length of the stride, is as high as 3 meters per second, which is phenomenal. Could be even faster, up to 5 or 6 meters per second if he reaches peak speed. The 8 alpha fibers, okay, are the largest, and therefore they will conduct active potentials at a phenomenal 80 to 120 meters per second. And very often you see in the literature these sensory axons being referred to as primary afferent fibers. The term afferent simply means conducting towards a particular structure. In this case, the structure is the central nervous system, and the point of reference is in the vertebrae. So these principles you should keep in mind. These C fibers conduct the slowest, and they generally encode pain and temperature, as well as the 8 alpha fibers, which also conduct signals regarding pain. 8 alpha fibers conduct signals regarding mechanical touch, as well as a little bit of proprioception from your muscle. So proprioception is simply the sensation of your limbs, position of your limbs in space. So if you're floating in the swimming pool, you close your eyes, even though you're not looking at your arms and legs, you know exactly where your arms are and your legs are relative to each other, and that's called proprioception, proprioception. It's the sense of position of your limbs in space. Okay, so let's, yes.
So why is pain so much slower than like knowing that your limbs are in space?
I'm sorry, why is...
Why do you get a sense of pain
Yeah.
slower than knowing that, like touch and stuff like that?
Okay, so I think your question is, has more to do with why things are the way they are.
Yeah.
Because I just told you the mechanism. Pain signals take slower because there's another mainly through C fibers, which are much, much smaller. Why do pain signals take a longer period of time? Well, it takes more time, but not that much more time. It's a split second. Slower than, say, sensation of smoothness or texture. So if you were to touch a red hot iron bar, smooth iron bar, red hot, you would sense the smoothness first, and then that burning pain a split second later. Okay? That's a fact. A lot of people, I mean, they don't believe that, but it's very easy to find out the phone burning stuff. But you sense the smoothness instantaneously and split second later the heat.
Other than the diameter of the axon related to speed.
Okay, so how is the size of the axon related to speed? Think of an axon like an electrical wire. A very thin electrical wire has higher resistance for electrical current flow. A larger wire has lower resistance and therefore will conduct an electrical pulse much more quickly. So a smaller axon, tiny axon like C fiber, will conduct an action potential much slower because there's a higher internal resistance, which is much smaller diameter. It's like trying to pump water through a very thin straw versus a larger straw. You ever try to suck a milkshake through a very thin straw? You got really stuck. That's because the straw has higher resistance than a larger straw. Okay? Same thing with an axon. Does that answer your question? This is the beauty of neurophysiology. It's based on principles and logic. It's not all everywhere. So let's talk now about the mechanoreceptors for touch in your skin. And there are 4 general receptors. They are called Pacinian corpuscles, which are the largest, and they're located well into your skin at the deeper levels. There's also Leisner's corpuscles, Ruffini's endings, and Merkel's isthmus. And Merkel's are most superficially located on the surface. And Leisner's are just a little bit below the surface. And whereas Ruffini's and Pacinian corpuscles are well into the lower regions of your skin. And each one of these receptors are attuned to specific frequencies of touch. So the Meissner's corpuscles are most sensitive to around 50 hertz vibration. So what you're looking at here is a plot of the stimulus frequency versus the threshold amount of skin pressure in millimeters that's required to excite either Meissner's or Pacinian corpuscles. So at the lowest point of each curve, you get the highest sensitivity. So Meissner's corpuscles are most sensitive to a vibration frequency of about 50 hertz, whereas Pacinian corpuscles are most sensitive to a much higher vibration frequency. So if you took a thin metal probe and you just press against your skin and vibrate that probe at particular frequencies, you get this sensitivity curve. These receptors also have various sizes of receptive fields. So here are the receptive fields shown here in these spots where there's the various types of receptors. So you can see that for Ruffini's endings and Pacinian corpuscles, the receptive fields of single receptors are quite large, whereas the receptive fields are quite small for Meissner's and Merkel's receptors. Pain receptors, as I said, come in through the A-delta myelinated or the C fibers. And here's an important point. C fibers, because they conduct more slowly, they tend to respond to, they tend to produce sensations of slow pain, slow burning pain. Okay? Whereas A-delta fibers are specialized to signal sharp pain. For example, if you cut your hand with a sharp object, that sudden sharp tinge of pain is all conducted by A-delta fibers. If you burn your hand on a stovetop, that slow sensation of burning that lingers long afterwards, that's C fiber pain. And there are other types of pain receptors, nociceptors. There are polymodal nociceptors, which respond to multiple types of stimuli. And as I mentioned, there are thermal nociceptors, which will respond to extreme heat, usually greater than 45 extreme cold, such as Edmonton 6 months a year. I had to slip that in. Being an Easterner coming up with and remember, there are no pain receptors in our cortex. And there are some pretty cool mapping experiments that have been done and can be done in human patients because of the absence of pain receptors in the brain, which I'll talk about towards the end of my talk when I talk about cortical maps.
Question?
Yes.
Is there a particular kind of nociceptor associated with chronic pain?
Is there a particular type of nociceptor associated with chronic pain? No, not that I'm aware of. I'm talking here only about peripheral receptors. Chronic pain usually generally results from mechanisms in our cerebral cortex, somatosensory, which gives us the perception of consistent pain, even though our mechanical receptors out here would not be activated. Okay? So if you experience chronic pain, you don't have to have a constant stimulus out. It's all centralized in the cortex. So thermal receptors, there are separate classes of cold and warm receptors. I won't talk too much about them. Just keep in mind that the cold receptors paradoxically also respond to high temperatures, a little bit of a response to high temperatures. Whereas the warm receptors tend to increase the firing at temperatures above about 35, 40 degrees Celsius. And these receptors, they're specialized to respond to changes in temperature, not persistent constant temperatures. So if you were to cool the skin here from this temperature to this temperature, and look at the action potential firing of a cold receptor, notice that the receptor firing lots of action potentials have to change, the jump, but far fewer action potentials during the persistent cool. The warm receptor, of course, is mostly silent during the cool temperature and will fire briskly during the sudden change, but not so briskly at the higher persistent temperature. So these receptors are specialized for encoding sudden changes in temperature. And it explains what's known as sensory adaptation. So if you come in from a freezing cold day, your hands are numb, and you plunge your hand into a pail of warm water, okay? Not hot water, warm water, you feel that immediate warmth. But if you keep your hand in that warm water for a period of time, you then lose the sensation of that sudden change, that sensory adaptation. And you can do the opposite as well, come in from a really, really hot day into a slightly air-conditioned room, you feel the sudden transition in temperature, but after being in the room for a while, you start to feel hot again because the novelty, the change wears out. That's because the thermal receptors have adapted. And some receptors are rapidly adapting and others are slowly adapting. So with a slowly adapting receptor, you get lots of active potentials during the stimulus turning on. But over time, the number of action potentials falls slowly, gradually. With the rapidly adapting receptor shown here at the bottom, you get a very brief increase in firing frequency, which rapidly falls to zero during the stimulus. Question?
What happens when you burn more than you put your hand in really hot water and you get that tea?
How hot? Not enough to burn.
And then you go to the hot.
Yeah. You get the tingling sensation? I have no idea what the tingling is. But I think the point is that again, that's still adaptation. If you lose that sensation of warmth, the warmth is the change, and you lose that sensation of warmth. Probably might be explained by when you feel that initial warmth, or you took off your sweater, or whatever you got on, the coat. And as a result, as you become adjusted to the warmer temperature, after a while, you begin to sense that new environment as either normal or in your case, cooler. But not central, that's not peripheral, I think that's central, higher sense, cognitive perception. It's a perceptual process more than a pure signal transmission. I think it's central. So here's the dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway, and it mediates vibration sensations, touch, proprioception. Generally, the signals that come through all those mechanoreceptors with the exception of pain. And as I said, the axons come in through the dorsal root, form a synapse within the dorsal bone. It also extends a longer axon upward on the same side of the body, up to the medulla in the dorsal column nuclei, where it forms a synapse, chemical synapse. And then the postsynaptic neurons in the medulla then cross the midline to the opposite side of the body, shoots all the way up to a cluster of nuclei known as the ventral posterior lateral nuclei in the thalamus, where it forms another synapse. And the postsynaptic neurons in the VPL then send axons finally to the somatosensory cortex. So they are eccentric. You don't count the synapse locally here, and only the synapse in the medulla. There are 1 and 2 synapses before reaching the primary somatosensory cortex. So with the exception of smell, all sensory information from the periphery goes through the thalamus. Okay? Sound, vision, taste, touch, pain, and temperature all go through this critical relay station called the thalamus. In contrast, the spinal thalamic pathway conducts information on pain and also on temperature and some aspects of touch, which is a very, very minor contribution. So it's mostly pain and temperature. And with the spinal thalamic pathway, the first synapse is formed within the dorsal horn. The postsynaptic cells that receive the signal from the receptor then cross their axons at the same local level of the spinal cord, not in the medulla, but at the local level of entry to the opposite side of the body, where it shoots an axon up past the medulla to the thalamus. So this is one heck of a long axon, depending on where this segment is. It could be as low as the sacral or lumbar region. Where the second synapse is formed in the VPL nucleus, but also in another nucleus called the intralaminar nucleus. And from there, postsynaptic neurons in the thalamus then send the signal to primary somatosensory cortex. You look bored, man. Yeah, you look bored. You have this before? So now we get into what I consider the much more interesting part of CNS, the cortex. And primary somatosensory cortex is, like I said, in the post-central gyrus, just behind the central sulcus. And if you take a blade and cut along region right along as shown here. And then take a look, fold the tissue out, and then take a look at the edges. What you find is a section that looks like this. Here's the central sulcus. The front of the brain is towards here, the back towards here. There's the posterior parietal cortex in purple, this part. And you get this crest. At the peak of the crest is a region known as area 1, and then you have more towards the posterior 2, more anteriorly 3B and 3A. And there are neurons within each one of these subsections that will respond to certain types of objects. So the neurons in 3B will respond and encode information on texture, size, and shape of objects. 3A deals with muscle stress receptors from deeper tissue, such as muscle connective tissue. Number 1, neurons in region 1 encode information strictly on texture, whether it's a smooth or rough object. And neurons in area 2 encode information on the size, shape, and also a little bit on joint and pressure information for myoception. Now there's a general principle that applies not only to somatosensory cortex, but to all regions of cortex. The first principle is that neurons in a vertical column of cortex respond to a single type of stimulus, a single modality. So if you took a tiny microelectrode and you advance it vertically, perpendicular to the surface of the brain, and advance it step by step, down this way or down this way, within a single vertical track, you'll hit cells that will fire only in response to a single type of modality. If you shift your electrode ever so slightly by less than a millimeter laterally and sample a new vertical track, those cells, even though they're pretty close to the previous cells, they will encode a different type of modality. It could be a very subtle change, or it could be a drastic change in modality. The second principle is that all neurons in a single vertical column receive inputs from the same patch of skin, in the case of the somatosensory cortex. In the visual system, primary visual cortex, all neurons in the single vertical column there will respond to the same local area of your visual field. Okay? So there is some logic to the anatomical method that is the cerebral cortex. And I know that this next slide isn't in your notes, don't have it, but I just want you to see what I mean. Here's the same cartoon. If you blow up the slab, this is what you actually see. These are your fingers, the fourth finger, third finger, second finger. These are the touch receptors, and these receptors eventually send inputs to specific columns of cells within your cortex. So there's a column for a second digit, third digit, fourth digit, fifth digit, etc. And even within each finger, there are separated columns or cells that are encoding information from rapidly adapting and slowly adapting touch receptors. That's all I want you to know. As far as the biosensation is concerned in the cortex. So many years ago, a famous Canadian surgeon, neurosurgeon, named Walter Penfield, performed a monumental experiment on human patients who were lightly anesthetized, so that he and his team were able to open up their skulls, expose the surface of their brain, and actually stimulate with a probe particular parts of the brain and listen for prompts to the patient for verbal response. So Penfield would exact one localized region and ask the patient, what do you feel, or what do you sense, or what do you remember? And the patient would be able to respond. This is why not having pain receptors in the brain is an advantage for experimental neurosurgery. And as a result of Penfield's work, he was able to that for each adult, normal human being, there is a typical map of your body parts. And you can see that the map is totally anatomically twisted. The face region is represented by a much larger surface area than, say, the hand region or the lower back region. And this is because there are far fewer receptors, sensory receptors, in your lower back and torso than there are in your face, lips, tongue, fingers, and toes, and feet. Okay? So the size of each body part shown here in this cortical map, somatotopic map, the size of each body part that is represented in the map is proportional to the number of sensory receptors that are supplying that particular body part. And it makes perfect everyday sense. You've got lots of receptors in the lips and face, liver, and tongue. If you've ever accidentally baked your tongue ever so slightly, man, it's a pain. Because there's such a high concentration of receptors there for touch, taste, as well as for pain. Whereas if you jab yourself with a pinprick in the lower back, it doesn't really hurt that much. Some people may not even notice it. So the amount of cortex devoted to a body part is correlated, proportional to the density of sensory input received from that body part. And as we'll see, these maps are not fixed. They can change with experience. They're plastic. We'll see that in a few slides, as well as in Friday class. So here's the somatotopic cartoon of the human subject, with disproportionate representation in the cortex of the hand and face. Now this leads to an interesting observation with regard to the women's shoe industry. I mean, the women's shoe industry makes millions a year selling women's shoes, new styles, new brands. And women and men with men's shoes, I must admit, really go crazy for the latest styles or even for classic styles. And men get turned on by women wearing great shoes. And women, I suspect, enjoy wearing high heels or certain styles of shoes because I suspect it turns them on. Okay? Now, the neural basis for that, I think, is in primary somatosensory cortex. And I think the shoemakers understand this to a certain extent and they exploit it. If you look at the map, you'll see that the foot and toe region is right next door to the genital region. So anything that excites the foot and toe region will likely also excite the neighboring genital region. So I think this is the reason why it's a sexual turn-on shoe, not only for the wearer, but also for the observer. Coincidence? I don't think so. This is I mean, you don't see the hand next to the genital. If the hands are next to the genitals, we'd be buying winter gloves, turn on the winter gloves. But that's not the case. I think this is the neurological basis for sexy shoes. So cortical reorganization, I told you before that cortical mass are plastic. So the amount of tissue that's represented by a particular body part is not fixed. The borders can change. So if you were to amputate a person's right hand and look at the left somatosensory cortex after a few months, because that person lost their right hand, and therefore all sensation from that hand, what you find is that the region of brain tissue shown here in sort of yellowish orange here, that previously responded to touch in that missing hand, amputated hand, that region of tissue is now taken over by the neighboring regions that previously responded to the face and the arm. So that now the new map looks like this. There's no longer a hand region in the person's left somatosensory cortex. Remember, he lost his right hand, contralateral. Yes.
What happens to, like, we don't have pieces that have like,
Yes. So the question is, what is phantom pain? Amputees have phantom pain. We don't know the exact reason. If you read your book, there's a box on that, I think, on phantom pain. The basis for phantom pain is a bit cloudy, but it might have to do with tiny little axon collaterals that form that around and therefore excite that missing limb area. Okay. Has to do with that. It's a kind of cool phenomenon. I would say you get amputees saying that they feel like their limb is still there, they feel a tingling sensation or a missing stump. I think it has all to do with the thresholds of firing for neurons in the map. So anyway, that's what the new map looks like. Now, be careful here. The brain tissue has not changed in size. So we're not dealing with shrinkage of the brain or expansion of the brain here. Total mass stays the same. All that's happened is that the neurons now respond to these body parts, the arm and the face, have taken over the region previously occupied by the hand region. So it's like taking a two-dimensional map of Edmonton and redrawing the borders. Okay? The total surface area of land hasn't changed. You just redrawn the borders. Okay?
So you could potentially do that with a lot of different kinds of senses, like if you lost your sight.
Oh, absolutely. People who are blind have very, very sharp hearing. I've seen a blind person move around his living room effortlessly. And what he claims is that he senses not only by touch, but also by sound. Amazing. And you have people, of course, who have lost their hearing completely, and part of it is vision, and they rely heavily on the touch, and even smell. So losing one sense can induce a compensatory response, a sharpening of the intact senses. So if you lose one sense completely, your remaining intact senses get sharpened. And I think that's a brain compensation mechanism. It shows that the brain is highly plastic and can modify its own sensitivity, its own function to current conditions. Now the opposite can be true. So if you train a monkey in this experiment to use just 3 of his fingers, 2, 3, and 4, to manipulate a wheel in order to retrieve a food reward, a peanut, you do that for several weeks and then map its cortical primary spinal-sensory cortex, you find that the total area encoded by 2, 3, and 4 is larger it's larger in the experimental group than in the control group, the spinal-sensory system. That's called cortical plasticity. So remember the old saying, use it or lose it? That's a key example. So as we age, I suspect that cortical plasticity becomes less and less easily managed. It gets harder for your brain to show plasticity as you age, but not impossible. So people who are in their 60s, 70s are encouraged to do crossfit just to use it or lose it, to keep those brain circuits active so that they can be experienced enough to modify themselves if something important comes along. It won't completely cure Alzheimer's or senile dementia, but what has been shown is that keeping your mind active with something as simple as reading a newspaper or doing a crossword puzzle can certainly slow down the onset of Alzheimer's. Somebody has their hand up? A little up? All right, so Friday's lecture, I will look at visual cortex.